Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron and I am here tonight with some Battlytics action on an Inner Sphere OmniMech, everybody's favorite, the Templar. So the Templar was built in 3062. This was a response from the Federated Suns basically to develop more OmniMech since they were light in that department. So they went with this 85-ton assault mech, the Templar. This thing has a battle value of 2,045. It's got a movement profile of 4.6, 28 total heat dissipation, so 14 double heat sinks. It does have that XL Fusion engine, which, you know, it's okay, I guess. Endo steel, standard armor. Speaking of armor, 100% coverage. There's nothing more delicious than all the pips that you can fit on your favorite mech. So I like that. Now this thing also packs a pretty good array of weapons. It has 2 ER mediums. It has a Gauss rifle. It has a Streak 4. And then it's got 2 pulse lasers, which I don't really love. The large pulse, the medium pulse, these are both inner sphere variety. Not the best, but it is what it is. Now it does have upper arm actuators only on both the left and the right arms, which means it can arm flip. We'll talk about that when we get into the threat profile. And it is also equipped with a targeting computer. So pulse lasers plus a targeting computer that can stack. You can get some pretty nasty stuff going on there. So we'll see how this thing does. I'm excited to dive into it. Guys, stick around. The offensive, defensive, all the good analyses coming right up. All right, so here they are, the offensive benchmarks for the Templar TLR1-O. This is basically the prime configuration, if you want to think of it that way. So the first thing I notice is that the heat sinks gobble everything up. There's no capacity to overheat on this mech. Under standard conditions here when you're running your walk. There's really, I mean, not until you're basically in medium pulse laser range, this mech can fire everything and not take on a whole lot of heat. So in that regard, it's easy to use. In other regards, there's really not a lot that you can do in terms of optimizing it. I will also say this variant does not have jump jets on it. We talked about the move profile 4.6. However, other configurations or variants like the OA, I believe maybe the OC, there's a couple of them that do have jump jets on them. This is not one of them. So damage overall looks very good. You can see it's a gradual curve from the furthest ranges when you're just really relying on that Gauss rifle all the way in to close range. So the closer you get, the more you're doing. Obviously, once that large pulse laser, the SRM-4, the 2 ER mediums, when that whole array of weaponry is working together, you can do quite well. And again, it only builds up heat when you decide you want to pack in the medium pulse laser as well. So in terms of lethality, this thing did pretty well. It was able to knock out that javelin pretty quickly. Average time to kill on this was 7.12 turns, so that's very, very good. The average is around 10 for all the mechs that we've looked at. It does generate about 3.3 criticals per game, which is about average that you see. Damage per hit is on the high side at 9.4, courtesy of that the Gauss rifle and also the Streak 4, right? Because if you miss, you don't shoot, which is a nice little benefit of that. So, a couple of interesting things here. It's got primarily 87% of the time it's killing this mech out through CT kills. It is getting about 1 in 10 times it's getting about a head kill. And then very, very infrequently, it's getting engine kills. So this thing is not a crit seeker. It is just the kind of mech that's going to dump in damage, core things out. It is very reliable in terms of, likelihood to hit. Again, we talked about it, the pulse laser, the targeting computer. It's a nasty combination. But why don't we take a look at the defense? Again, this thing packs a ton of armor, but it does have the Gauss rifle, which is combustible. It's got the SRM ammo, although it does have case in there as well. So let's see how it does. Let's take a look at the defense. All right, so here it is, the Templar defensive benchmark. So the first thing, again, talking about the armor distribution, it's very, very good. This thing is maxed out in terms of total pips, 100%. It's actually over-armored on the front center torso and just a hair under on the side torsos and what you would expect in the rear in terms of overall distribution, but I would prefer that. Your center torso is statistically the most likely place to get shot, and so I think putting extra armor there over some other places, especially your rear, I think is very wise on a mech of this size, and the weapon profiles and things like that. So I love the way it's set up. Mobility-wise, did very well. Very unlikely to get any sort of critical hits on the legs. And it's not, those critical slots are not packed out. It has 4 critical slots only in each leg, and those are all actuators. So it does have 2 roll again slots in each leg. However, it's just got so much armor on this chassis, it's just impossible to get through. Survivability was only 86.2%. Now that's very high. I say only because I expected it to be higher with this volume of armor. But again, if you look at the chart, it's the darn engine kills. You get some unlucky shots. You get hit internally on that side torso. You get the torso ripped off. I mean, you're done, right? So it is what it is. And that's just the unfortunate reality of Innersphere XL engines. I mean, if you look at that far right survivability chunk there, I mean, the engine kills are huge, right? 6.6. It's basically the same amount as dying any other way. Ammo kills only account for 3.1%. However, those ammo kills are coming from really engine deaths, right? It's an engine death, but it tracks there's an ammo kill because the ammo is what ended up taking the mech out, right? So even though that right torso is cased, you hit the SRM ammo, it's going to take that side torso out, and the mech is out of commission. So that's basically the Templar's Achilles heel. If it has one, it would be that. Overall, though, pretty promising. It does a good job of maintaining its mobility, which is important. You can get it where you want it to go. And again, 86% survivability is pretty good in this particular benchmark. All right, moving on. All right, my favorite, the efficiency analysis. So it's pretty good, guys. So again, 86.2% survivability. We only see a damage loss of 5.4%. Because it is able to do a good chunk of damage throughout the range band. And although it's doing the most at close range, it really isn't seeing a whole lot of deaths there. So very, very good. And I think what else is important is the reliability of that Gauss rifle at long range with the targeting computer. So really good stuff there. So the efficiency shakes out to be 9.51. That's very, very high. It's up there with some of the best of the best. And while, this isn't in terms of damage, like 288's a lot, it's not like a standout performer damage-wise, but that battle value is so low, 2,045. I'm surprised it's so low for what you get here. So that is why this is a good bang for buck mech, guys. Now, what's really interesting is the gunnery sensitivity curve. This might be one of the lowest in terms of sensitivity that I've ever looked at. Some of them are, of course, negative, like the ones that are just pure pulse lasers, like my favorite, the Battle Cobra. But this one, because it has the targeting computer, it drives down the values on almost, every weapon. And then the, of course, the pulse lasers stacking with that. So the moral of the story is I would play this at a Gunnery 3. Gunnery 2, you're going to squeeze a little bit more out of this mech in terms of damage. But you're saving 400 and something maybe 420 is it battle value playing it at Gunnery 3 versus Gunnery 2. You could even kind of get away with playing it at Gunnery 4, but you can see there's a huge jump in efficiency because of the 2d6 probability curve between Gunnery 4 and Gunnery 3, but it really starts to level out and even drops. Do not play it any higher than Gunnery 2 or you're actually going to lose efficiency on this mech. So pretty interesting to see that. Let's talk about threat and battlefield roles. I'll tell you what I think about that. So starting with roles here for the Templar. So I think there are 2 primary roles that I would choose for this thing. The first one is Brawler. It's the kind of mech that if you get it in close, it's doing more damage. It's got good Alpha Strike potential. Peak Alpha Strike is 48 points of damage at 6 inches. You've got great reliability with that targeting computer. Get it in, mess some things up. You can do aim shots. You can do all sorts of wacky things with some of the weapons on board with this mech. The other one is Vanguard, which probably is the primary role for this thing, because it can take a decent amount of punishment. Just protect that side torso, especially that right side. And you can march this thing up the middle. It can be a bit of a fire magnet. I think it can survive. It's got a ton of armor. And so, I think that could do, this Templar could do very well in that Vanguard role. Now, in terms of the threat assessment, we talked about this in the damage review, right? You can see it just gets incrementally better the closer that you get. The ACD cap is 91.8%. That's very high. So that is, ACD is your average calculated damage. So that factors in what range am I at, right? What are my modifiers? It assumes a +2 for the target mod, right? And it sort of does some math around, how much damage am I likely to do versus what's the maximum amount I can do. So it's basically saying on average, at your best point, which is 3 inches there, you can see that on the chart, right? I'm able to do 91.8% of my total damage, right? That's really impressive. And again, that's the targeting computer, that's the streaks. So if I have to sum up the Templar in a word, it's reliable. It will do what you want it to do. You don't have to worry too much about it failing in its role on the battlefield. It's got great survivability. It's got a very low motive hit. When we looked at the motive hits, there's a very low % chance there of slowing down. It stays mobile and it can deliver damage. I mean, that's the kind of thing I think that everybody wants in a tactical war game, right? You don't want to just pray to the dice gods. You want reliability. I think this mech has it. Just remember, it does have 2 arms that only have upper arm actuators, so you kind of arm flip with this thing. That is a pretty good benefit. So you can get that Gauss rifle, the large pulse, the medium pulse. They do have to flip together in classic, right? They have to flip together. So there is that, but still, even being able to shoot that Gauss and a large pulse or something in your rear arc if something pesky gets back there, that's a pretty good thing to have. So all things said, my closing thoughts on the Templar. I'm actually very impressed with this mech. This was one of our patrons asked for this one to be reviewed, and thusly we are reviewing it. And I'm impressed. I was never really a Templar fanboy. I think I was sort of swayed by my experience with it in MechWarrior 4. It was never really good in that game, in my opinion. And so it never really impressed me. Of course, as you know, I have tremendous bias against any inner sphere pulse weaponry. I think it's awful. But because this thing has the Gauss rifle and it has that, that big gun that can cover the range, and you can move relatively quickly with this mech, maybe those pulse lasers work. Maybe that large pulse laser, the heat tax, it's all sort of soaked up by that large volume of heat sinks, so it seems to work out. And you're getting -3 instead of -2, with the targeting computer. So that's excellent too. So I'm a believer in the Templar, guys. Battlytics has converted me. Maybe we'll get a new plastic mini and I'll actually get it on the table sometime soon. We'll see. But interested to know what you think about the Templar. Do you agree with this analysis, or is this controversial? I don't know. Tell me. Am I becoming a large pulse laser fanboy? No, that's not going to happen. But interested to know what you think about it, and tell me what your favorite Templar variant is. I was just looking in MegaMech Lab, and there goes all the way up to the letter R. I don't know if every letter is filled, but there's so many different Templar variants out there. Interested to know which ones you guys like to play on the table. So that's that. That's all I got. I hope you enjoyed this Battlytics review here as we took a look at a Inner Sphere OmniMech. Very, very cool. I think the only other OmniMech on the Inner Sphere side we looked at was the Avatar. Maybe one day I'll look at the Sunder. That's another one of my favorite ones. But that said, guys, a couple of quick things. First and foremost, Aries Games and Minis for all of your BattleTech needs. You need the dice, you need the books, you need the miniatures, anything, everything, measuring tapes, terrain. Just head over to Aries Games and Minis. They do a great job over there. So if you don't know where to get your stuff, that's your #1 spot. Second, guys, if you want to support the channel, #1, subscribe. #2, leave a like, leave a comment, help us achieve and exceed our goal of 10,000 subscribers. And if you want to support the channel more, you can come on over to Patreon and check us out there. We've got a few different tiers for everybody to get into. You can stream our soundtrack. You can buy our sweet merch. It's actually right on the shelf in YouTube. If you scroll down, you can see it. You can buy it right from there. So lots of stuff you can do to support the channel. And of course, we appreciate it. And stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a great night.